Have you ever felt that knot in your stomach? The one that tightens the moment you realize you failed? Maybe it was a business that crashed, a test you bombed, a relationship you couldn't hold together, or a dream that slipped through your fingers. You sit there replaying it over and over again, wondering what went wrong, wondering what people will say, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you're not cut out for this after all. But let me ask you something deeper. What if the moment you failed was actually the exact moment you were being shaped into something stronger? Most people don't talk about failure until they've wrapped it in a success story, until they've climbed out of it, cleaned themselves up, and put a pretty bow on top. But let's get real. You're not always going to have a bow. Sometimes you're just going to have bruises, mistakes, and silence. And in that silence, you're going to be tempted to do the one thing that feels easy: walk away, quit. But what if I told you the real threat to your future is not failure at all? It's quitting. That's right. Failing? Failing is okay, necessary even. Quitting, on the other hand, is a decision, a conscious one. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you allow. Right now, there are people smarter than you, more talented than you, more connected than you, and you know what? Many of them will never make it. Not because they couldn't, but because they quit when it got hard. Because they mistook a fall for a final destination. Here's the truth. You will fail, you will fall, you will mess things up, but none of that defines you. What defines you is whether or not you get back up. So before we go any further, I want you to do something. I want you to think about that thing you gave up on, the one that still haunts you, the one that you quietly mourn, hoping no one brings it up. Because today, we're not just going to talk about why failing is okay. We're going to talk about why quitting isn't, and how you can start fighting like hell to never let it happen again. Let's get into it. Failure. It's a word that makes most people flinch. It's uncomfortable, even painful. We're trained from an early age to avoid it. Get the right answer. Don't mess up. Stay in line. Be perfect. But let me tell you something no one teaches you in school. Failure isn't something to run from. It's something to run toward if you're serious about becoming who you're meant to be. Here's what most people get wrong. They treat failure like a final verdict, a sentence, as if it says something permanent about who they are. I failed, so I'm not good enough. I failed, so I'm not meant for this. I failed, so I should stop. But that's not failure talking. That's fear. That's ego. That's the part of your mind that wants to stay comfortable, not capable. The truth? Failure is not a tombstone. It's not where your story ends. It's the gym. It's the proving ground. It's the place where your character is built, your grit is tested, and your mental toughness is forged. If you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. You're playing safe. You're choosing comfort over courage. Think about the best athletes in the world, the elite performers, the people who are out there doing what others said was impossible. They didn't get there by avoiding failure. They got there because they embraced it. They studied it. They learned from it. Every missed shot, every wrong move, every blown opportunity, it taught them something. It didn't stop them. It sharpened them. You don't become great in the spotlight. You become great in the dark, in the silence, in the moments where you fall flat on your face and have no one clapping, no one watching, no one coming to rescue you. That's where the real growth happens. And it hurts. It's messy. It's lonely. But it's also honest. See, failure has a way of showing you the truth. Not about the world, but about yourself. When you fail, you find out what you're made of. You find out how bad you want it. You find out whether you're in it for real or just when it's easy. You get to see where your weaknesses live, and more importantly, what you're willing to do about them. But here's the trap. A lot of people fail once, and they build a story around it. I'm not a leader. I'm not a good parent. I'm not cut out for business. They slap a label on themselves based on one painful moment and wear it like an identity. But your failure is not your identity. It's just a chapter. You're not meant to live in it. You're meant to learn from it and move on. Don't confuse a fall with a finish line. Let me give you an image. Imagine a soldier in training. Day one, they can't get through the obstacle course. They're slower than everyone. They're struggling. They fall in the mud. They're out of breath. They get yelled at. They fail hard. Now imagine if they walked off right then and said, well, I guess I'm not soldier material. You'd laugh, right? Because that's not how it works. Training is supposed to break you down so it can build you back up stronger. It's supposed to expose the cracks so you can reinforce them. Failure isn't rejection. It's the process. But civilians, we've been so shielded from discomfort that we've started to believe the lie that failure means you're broken. It doesn't. It means you're trying. It means you're in the arena taking hits, getting dirty, putting your name on the line. And let me tell you, there is something sacred about that. Failure also builds empathy. It softens arrogance. It makes you human. When you've tasted failure, real failure, you become less judgmental of others. You become more understanding. You become more resilient because you've been there and survived it. It gives you depth. The people who impress me aren't the ones who've never failed. They're the ones who have fallen hard and still kept moving. People who failed businesses and started new ones. People who went through hell and didn't let it define them. People who looked at rock bottom and said, this is where I rebuild. So the next time you fail, and yes, it's a when, not an if, don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this teaching me? Don't ask, how do I avoid this again? Ask, how do I grow from this? The goal is not to become someone who never fails. The goal is to become someone who never stays down. You are going to mess up. You are going to fall short. You are going to face moments where you feel completely out of your depth. But if you choose to see those moments as part of your training, not proof of your inadequacy, you'll come out of them stronger than you ever imagined. Failure doesn't care about your feelings. It's not personal. It doesn't mean you're not enough. It means you're in the arena doing the hard work. And that's where all the growth, all the grit, all the greatness lives. So don't fear failure. Get familiar with it. Get close to it. Let it teach you. Let it strip away what's weak. Let it show you what you're really capable of. Because when you realize failure isn't the end, it's the beginning. You'll stop running from it and start using it. Failure is your training ground. Stand up in it, bleed in it, learn in it. But whatever you do, don't bury yourself in it. You've still got a lot of fight left. Quitting feels deceptively easy. It offers the illusion of relief. It whispers to you in the moments when everything hurts, when doubt is louder than reason, when you're tired of falling short and no longer recognize the person in the mirror. Quitting doesn't show up like a monster. It doesn't bang on your door demanding your surrender. It shows up subtly, disguised as being realistic, as letting go or moving on. It wears the mask of logic when really it's fear in disguise. Here's the thing. Failing will break you down. Yes. But quitting will hollow you out. Quitting doesn't just stop your progress. It quietly drains your self-respect. Every time you quit on something that mattered, a piece of your identity goes with it. You start to lose the ability to trust yourself, to believe your own promises. You say things like, I'll get back to it, or I'll try again later. But deep down, you know the truth. You let it go not because it was impossible, but because it was uncomfortable. And discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the price of entry to anything worth having. The real enemy is this voice inside that convinces you that momentary discomfort is too much to bear. That one failure means you're not good enough. That one rejection means you're not wanted. That one loss means you're not capable. That voice, the quitter's voice, is a liar. But it speaks just softly enough to make you believe it's telling you the truth. Now, let's be clear, quitting and changing direction are not the same. Sometimes stepping away from something toxic or misaligned with your values is necessary. That's not quitting. That's choosing wisely. But most of the time when people quit, it's not because the path was wrong. It's because the path was hard. And in those moments, quitting becomes a reflex, not a decision. When you quit, you reinforce a dangerous habit. You teach your brain that when things get tough, the way out is to walk away. You wire yourself for escape instead of endurance. That's how you build a life of half-finished plans, dreams that collect dust, and confidence that never gets a chance to grow. You think you're avoiding failure, but what you're really doing is burying your potential. And let me tell you something most people won't. Nobody's coming to save you from that. Nobody's going to drag you back into the fight. You have to make that call. You have to decide that even if you're bleeding, even if you're bruised, even if you're down to nothing but grit, you're going to keep moving forward, because quitting isn't just about the task. It becomes a statement about who you are. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the most talented. You don't even have to be the fastest. But if you refuse to quit, you become dangerous, unstoppable. That's what separates the people who make it from the ones who don't. It's not perfection. It's perseverance. It's the decision to show up again and again, even when no one's watching, even when no one's clapping, even when it feels like the world's already written you off. Quitting doesn't just kill dreams, it kills character. It chips away at the part of you that believes you can endure hard things. That belief is your armor. Lose that, and everything else becomes vulnerable. You can't be proud of something you walked away from just because it got hard. Pride is earned through resilience, through sweat, through moments where you didn't feel strong but chose to act strong anyway. Think of every meaningful achievement in history, every invention, every revolution, every victory. It was built on thousands of failures, but it was never built on quitting. The Wright brothers didn't quit when their first prototype crashed. Thomas Edison didn't quit after the 100th failed attempt. Athletes don't quit after their first injury. Warriors don't quit when the battle turns. If they had, we wouldn't remember their names. We wouldn't learn from their legacy. So why would your story be any different? You want to be someone who makes it, someone who builds something real, who looks back at life with pride. Then you better get comfortable with failure. But you better declare war on quitting, because that's the thing that will rob you quietly without fanfare and leave you wondering 5, 10, 20 years from now, what if I had just kept going? Let that question haunt you now, so you don't have to live with it later. Quitting is seductive because it gives you relief today, but it steals your peace tomorrow. It trades long-term pride for short-term comfort. It feels like mercy in the moment, but it's betrayal in disguise. When you fail, you're still in the fight. You're still swinging. You're still learning. That means there's still hope. You still have momentum. But when you quit, you cut the cord. You stop the flow. And the hardest part about quitting, starting again. Because once you make quitting an option, it's always on the table. You want to live a life you're proud of? Then train yourself to stay in the game. Even when it's messy. Even when you're exhausted. Even when it looks like you're losing. The moment you stop quitting is the moment you start winning. Even if success takes years, even if it costs more than you thought. Because in the end, the only ones who make it are the ones who refuse to give up. So you can fail, you can fall, you can cry, you can bleed. But don't you dare quit. Life doesn't hit you gently. It doesn't send you warnings. It punches without apology, and it doesn't care if you were ready or not. That's why emotional resilience isn't just a nice trait to have, it's survival. It's the difference between people who stay down and people who get back up every single time. And not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Because truth is, most people don't stay down because they're broken. They stay down because they believe they're broken. They mistake pain for proof that they're not strong enough. But resilience doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you feel everything deeply and still choose to move forward. It means you don't numb it, you don't pretend it doesn't hurt. You look pain in the face, acknowledge it, and decide it's not going to stop you. The people who develop emotional resilience aren't the ones who had it easy. They're the ones who've walked through fire and refused to let it define them. They've been disappointed, betrayed, abandoned, heartbroken, humiliated. They've heard no more times than they can count. And still, they got up. Not because they weren't wounded, but because they chose to heal while moving. That's what most people don't understand. Healing doesn't have to be still. You don't have to put your life on pause to recover. You can heal in motion. You can cry and still keep walking. You can be scared and still take the next step. You can carry your pain and still carry your purpose. That's resilience. It's not clean or polished, it's messy, it's raw, but it's powerful. The key is what you do when no one is watching, when the phone isn't ringing, when your inbox is empty, when your effort feels invisible, when you give your all and it still isn't enough. That's when your resilience is tested. That's when you have to decide if your commitment is louder than your feelings. Because feelings lie. They fluctuate. They'll tell you it's hopeless, that you've already lost, that no one cares. But commitment, that's solid. That's the thing that will pull you through when your emotions are pulling you under. You also have to stop waiting to feel ready. Resilient people don't wait for the stars to align. They don't wait for motivation to show up. They act despite how they feel. They've trained themselves to show up even when it's hard, even when they're tired, even when they're angry, grieving, uncertain, or overwhelmed. That's what builds strength, repetition in adversity. You don't become mentally tough reading books or watching videos. You become mentally tough by getting back up when life knocks you flat. And let's be clear, resilience isn't about pretending to be strong all the time. It's not about acting like nothing affects you. That's denial, not strength. Real resilience is knowing how to fall apart and knowing how to pull yourself back together again. It's about knowing what tools help you stay centered. For some, it's breath work. For others, it's writing. For some, it's prayer. For others, it's putting on your shoes and going for a run. But resilient people don't sit in their pain indefinitely. They move with it. They use it. You've got to be your own rescue team. You've got to know how to talk yourself off the ledge, how to pull yourself out of your lowest moments. No one's coming to do that for you every time. And if you keep waiting for someone else to fix you, to pick you up, to make it all easier, you'll wait forever. Resilience is learning how to hold space for your pain without being consumed by it. It's learning how to be your own anchor. One of the biggest signs of emotional resilience, the ability to reframe, to take a hit and ask not, why is this happening to me? But what is this building in me? Resilient people turn pain into power by assigning it meaning. They don't see obstacles as walls. They see them as tests, and they ask themselves, what am I supposed to learn from this? That mindset doesn't remove the pain, but it gives it a purpose, and purpose is what keeps you moving. You also need to let go of perfection. Resilience isn't about bouncing back flawlessly. It's about bouncing back messily, sloppily, even. It's about trying again with shaky hands. It's about coming back to the gym after an emotional breakdown. It's about picking up the phone when it terrifies you. It's about facing the same challenge that broke you last time, but this time with more wisdom, more grit, more self-trust. That's the quiet power of resilience. It builds you quietly, slowly, from the inside out. Some days you're not going to feel strong. You're going to feel broken, exhausted, hopeless. That doesn't mean you're weak. That means you're human. But resilience says, feel all of it, but don't stop moving. You wipe your tears, tighten your grip, and take the next damn step. That's what keeps you alive in this world. Not perfection, not endless motivation, just the refusal to stay down. And remember, emotional resilience isn't built in a vacuum. It's built in the chaos, in the failures, in the heartbreaks and missed opportunities. It's built when everything you thought you could depend on falls apart, and you find out you're still standing, barely, but standing. That's what makes you unshakable. Not because life doesn't hit you, but because you've trained yourself to rise again and again. So the next time life knocks you flat, don't waste time blaming it. Don't sit there asking why. Just breathe, feel the ground, get your bearings, and then stand back up. Not because it's easy, not because you feel strong, but because resilience isn't about the fall. It's about what you do after. There's a kind of regret that doesn't announce itself right away. It doesn't punch you in the face like failure does. It doesn't leave you breathless or covered in sweat. It just sits there quiet, calm, patient, waiting for time to pass. That's the regret that comes from quitting, not the regret of making a mistake, not the regret of trying and coming up short, but the regret of knowing you walked away before the story was finished. The kind of regret that whispers to you in the dark. You could have done more. You should have held on longer. Quitting doesn't always feel like regret at first. In fact, it often feels like relief, like exhaling after holding your breath too long. But that relief is temporary. It's shallow, it fades quickly, and is replaced by something much heavier. Because deep down, we all know when we've cut ourselves short. We know when we've taken the easy exit instead of pushing through. And no matter how much you try to justify it to others or to yourself, part of you will always wonder what could have been if you had just kept going. On the other hand, failing real, painful, humiliating failure is one of life's greatest character builders. It's honest, it's raw. And while it may bruise your ego and shake your confidence, it never leaves you empty-handed. Failure, when faced with courage, teaches you things about yourself that comfort never could. It shows you where your limits are and gives you the tools to push past them next time. It exposes your blind spots. It humbles you, but it also sharpens you. It strengthens your resolve. It builds emotional armor. Failing is an act of effort. It means you tried. It means you cared enough to put yourself on the line. People who fail and get back up again become dangerous, not in a reckless way, but in a focused, unbreakable way. Because each failure teaches them how to adjust, how to endure, how to keep their soul intact even when the ground beneath them shakes. They become the kind of people you want next to you in a storm. People who don't flinch, who don't quit, who know how to stand firm even when everything else is falling apart. Now think about this. Almost every success story that inspires you has failure baked into its core. Not one of those stories is linear. Not one of them avoids the ugly middle. The athletes who lose seasons before winning championships. The entrepreneurs who go bankrupt before building empires. The artists who get rejected 100 times before finally breaking through. What sets them apart isn't that they avoided failure. It's that they didn't stop. They failed. They learned. They grew. That's character. That's power. Quitting, on the other hand, is a full stop. It's a decision that halts all progress. It tells your future, I'm not willing to fight for you. And the cruel thing about quitting is that you often don't realize the weight of it until much later, when the opportunity is long gone, when the path you could have walked has disappeared behind time, and all you're left with is the memory of a dream you didn't follow through on. Ask anyone in their later years about their biggest regrets. 9 times out of 10, they won't talk about the things they failed at. They'll talk about the things they walked away from. The relationships they didn't fight for, the ideas they didn't pursue, the passions they never explored. That's the sting of quitting. It follows you silently for years. And no success in another area can truly erase it, because deep down you know you didn't give it your all. But when you fail, honestly, fully, you walk away with your head high. You may hurt, you may question things, but you don't carry shame, because you know you stepped into the fire. You know you gave it what you had. And even if the outcome wasn't what you hoped, you walk away stronger. You walk away wiser. You don't fear the next challenge as much because you've already seen what failure feels like and survived it. Quitting teaches avoidance. It reinforces the idea that the way out is better than the way through. And once you quit one thing, it becomes easier to quit the next. It becomes a habit, a way of thinking. And habits don't stay in one part of your life. They bleed into everything. You quit your workout plan. You quit the difficult conversation. You quit the business idea. And soon quitting becomes your default setting. But when you choose to face failure instead, you build a mindset of resilience. You start to see obstacles not as signs to turn around, but as signals that growth is coming. You learn how to sit with discomfort, how to navigate doubt, how to silence the inner critic that tells you to walk away. And little by little, you become the kind of person who doesn't run from the hard things, the kind of person who finishes what they start. There is dignity in failure. There is strength in knowing you took the leap, even if you didn't land the way you wanted. And more often than not, if you stay in the game long enough, failure will eventually lead you to success. It's not the enemy, it's part of the path. Quitting, though, that's where the story ends. And nothing beautiful or worthwhile is ever built in surrender. So if you're facing something hard right now, something that feels too heavy, too complicated, too uncertain, remember this. You're allowed to fail. You're allowed to fall apart. You're allowed to get it wrong, but you're not allowed to give up on yourself. Not now. Not like this. Because quitting creates a wound that time won't heal. But failure? Failure builds the kind of character that will carry you through every storm you haven't even met yet. Choose to keep going. Choose the hard road. Choose to fail if you must. But never to quit. Showing up is everything. It sounds simple, too simple, maybe. But when you strip away the noise, the doubt, the fear, the excuses, what separates those who succeed from those who don't is this. They kept showing up, not just when it was exciting, not just when it was convenient, and definitely not only when they were motivated. They showed up on the days they didn't feel like it. They showed up when no one clapped, when no one noticed, when no one cared. They showed up when they were tired, uncertain, and full of self-doubt. They showed up even when it looked like they were getting nowhere. And because they kept showing up, they kept growing. You only lose when you stop doing that. When you stop standing up, walking in, and facing the thing that scares you. It's not the failure that kills your progress. It's not the criticism or the setbacks or the rejections. It's the decision to stop showing up. That's what ends dreams. That's what steals confidence. That's what breaks momentum. The world is full of people with talent, intelligence, and potential, but they quit showing up. Somewhere along the way, they decided it wasn't worth it, that they weren't worth it. You know what showing up really is? It's a declaration. It's you saying, I'm not done. It's saying this matters to me. It's saying I believe something good can still come from this, even if I don't see it yet. That's power. That's courage. And that's what builds an unshakable mindset. Because when you show up day after day, even in chaos, even in pain, you're building endurance. You're training your mind to value consistency over comfort. And consistency beats talent every time. There are going to be days when you don't want to face the challenge. There will be days when your own mind turns on you, when it tells you you're wasting your time, that nothing's changing, that everyone else is moving faster. You'll feel discouraged. You'll feel like disappearing. And in those moments, your brain will try to convince you that it doesn't matter if you take a break, that it's fine to skip one day, that rest is what you need. And sometimes rest is what you need. But let's not confuse quitting with recovery. One leads to healing, the other leads to regret. When you stop showing up, you don't just lose progress, you lose belief. You start to question everything. You wonder if you ever had what it took. You start shrinking. You avoid mirrors, avoid conversations about goals, avoid people who remind you of the version of yourself you gave up on. And the longer you stay away, the harder it gets to come back. Not because the work is harder, but because now you're battling shame too. Shame for giving up, shame for letting yourself down. And shame is heavy, heavier than failure, heavier than pain. But when you keep showing up, you hold on to your identity. Even if the results are slow, even if the outcome is unclear, you're telling yourself, I'm still in this. You're still the type of person who tries, who fights, who believes. You can fall short 100 times, but if you're still standing at the start line the next morning, you haven't lost. Because showing up isn't just about tasks or checklists. It's about who you are. It's about not breaking your own promise. Think about anyone who's achieved something remarkable, anything worth respect. They had no magic formula. They didn't coast to the top. They showed up on the hard days. They kept writing even when the pages were bad. They kept training even when the results stalled. They kept pitching even after being rejected. They kept rebuilding even after everything collapsed. They understood that success doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency. It comes from the person who says, I'm going to keep showing up until the door opens, or until I learn how to kick it down. There is something unbelievably powerful about refusing to leave the arena. You might be limping, you might be bruised, you might not have the same energy you started with, but you're still there, still swinging, still willing. And sometimes that's enough to turn everything around, because life rewards the persistent, not the lucky, not the gifted, but the ones who outlast their doubt. And yes, there will be silence. Long stretches of silence where it feels like nothing's happening. No one's watching, no one's clapping, no feedback, no validation. But in that silence, transformation is happening. Quietly, you're building something within yourself that the world can't take away. Discipline, faith, resilience. The kind of strength that isn't dependent on mood or external praise. The kind of strength that can't be. So the question isn't, am I failing? The question is, am I still showing up? If the answer is yes, you're still in the fight. You haven't lost. You're still growing, still becoming, still moving. And that means there's still time for everything to change. You don't need to take a giant leap today. You don't need to be amazing. You don't even need to feel good. You just need to show up. One more rep, one more page, one more pitch, one more walk, one more attempt. You don't need to know how the story ends. You just need to keep turning the pages. Because the truth is, life won't always go your way. But showing up anyway, that's how you win. That's how you make sure that no matter what happens, you never leave the outcome to fear or failure. You face it. You meet it. You stand your ground. You don't disappear. You show up. And in the end, that's what separates the ones who regret their lives from the ones who own them. So here it is, the truth you can't afford to forget. You are going to fail. You're going to fall. You're going to be tested in ways you never saw coming. But none of that means you're done. None of that means you're broken. It only means you're alive and in the fight. The real danger isn't failure. It's quitting. It's deciding that the discomfort is too much, that the dream is too far, that you aren't enough. But you are. You are enough. Not because you've never fallen, but because you keep getting back up. And if all you can do today is stand up, then stand. If all you can do is crawl forward, then crawl. But don't stop showing up. Not now. Not when you've come this far. Not when your story is still being written. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to have the courage to keep walking. Because as long as you're still moving, you're still growing. As long as you're still trying, you're still building. And as long as you refuse to quit, you cannot lose. Fail, fall, break, cry. But do not quit. You've got more in you. Show up and prove it.